Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. It's myself, Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman podcast, who are here to preview Week 6 of the Allianz National Football League. It's crunch time in the National Football League. Absolutely crunch time across all four divisions. Promotion, relegation, both very much up for grabs in terms of, there are certain teams up and down the country who could get relegated this weekend, and there are certain teams who could get promoted as well. So we'll be discussing everything really at the foot of all four divisions in terms of promotion, relegation, and everything else in between. Some big games this weekend. Tyrone, Monaghan is certainly one that stands out. Can Monaghan pull off the great escape against Tyrone? Mayo taking on Derry. You've got Galway against Dublin as well. Roscommon versus Kerry. Can the Rossies find a way to stay in Division 1? We'll be looking at Division 2 as well. Armagh versus Cavan is a game that definitely stands out there. If Cavan can get a win, they'll take one massive step towards a return to Division 1. And I think what will that be? 3 successive promotions after 3 successive relegations? Absolutely mental stuff if Cavan were to pull it off. And you've got some big games. Down West Meath is another one that stands out, and plenty more to discuss as well. Matthew, how's life? How's things? Looking forward to this weekend's games. I suppose it's great to have the football back.
It is, yeah, and thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, the hurling was good last weekend, but yeah, back to the football now, and back to going to Cork and Meath on Saturday as well in Navan, so it should be an interesting experience over in Meath. To be fair, I have praised Meath this year, so I don't know, they'll hopefully welcome me up there, but it seems to be a nice ground anyway. At least it's not on Paddy's Day, at least. It's on the 16th, so we're avoiding the parades, But yeah, looking forward to getting into the action. And one thing I noticed, look at the fixtures, all of them seem to be on Saturday, and then there's 3 on Sunday, the Down West Meath game and the 2 Division 1 games. So yeah, not much on Paddy's Day, but for the parades, to be honest. But yeah, we'll enjoy the Saturday anyway.
Yeah, probably does make a lot of sense though at the same time, because especially with, I know obviously they always used to have the All-Ireland Club finals on Paddy's Day, but obviously there were games obviously happening in the one ground, whereas I think having games in multiple different grounds across the country could cause a lot of disruption. So it probably does actually make sense to have the games on a Saturday. So maybe for once the GAA and everything else are actually thinking a bit more logically. Yeah, look, we'll crack straight into it. Big up to Kieran in the chat who says Monaghan been living on the edge of relegation the past 6 years. Horrendous form since that Dublin victory. And yeah, we will start with that game as well, because I do think Monaghan and Tyrone, massive rivals, huge implications and everything else in terms of promotion, relegation. Monaghan defeat would mean that they go back down to Division 2 for the first time, I think in 11 years. So it would be quite mad to see, considering the amount of times Monaghan have turned it around. We'll just remind ourselves of the league table, though, before we do that. So Derry are sitting on top, as you'll see there. Dublin are in second. Mayo, Kerry, Galway, all only separated by a single point. And you'll see there, Tyrone are in 6th. Roscommon are in 7th. Monaghan are in 8th. And a Monaghan defeat would mean that they would be relegated, because they obviously wouldn't be able to then catch any of the teams above them. They would be able to catch Roscommon, but of course, it is the bottom 2 who do go down. So relegation will see, or defeat will see Monaghan get relegated. So yeah, what do you reckon? Can Monaghan pull off the great escape this weekend?
They have done in the past, but geez, it doesn't look that way at the moment, the way they're performing, as the commenter mentioned there. It's horrendous form for Monaghan at the moment. They haven't really hit stride since the Dublin game, and as well as that, their defence has probably been one of the worst in the league so far. I know conceding a load against Derry, Kerry and Dublin is kind of acceptable given the trajectories that those sides are on, but conceding that much against Roscommon and then conceding that much against Galway after that then isn't really good enough for them. They've been living on the edge. Yeah, they have been, no doubt about it. And yeah, they look like they're going down. And isn't it ironic? I said it's a shame as on my own podcast before we started this one, that me, you and Seamus all predicted Monaghan to stay up. And isn't it ironic that this is the 1 year they go down? But yeah, it looks to be that way. It really does. But yeah, Tyrone are very inconsistent at the best of times, though. Like, they produce a good performance, decent in the second half against Mayo. They produce a good performance against Roscommon, but then they're utterly poor against Against Derry, against Mayo, the first half they were very, very, very poor, and against Kerry they were poor the last day. So, and they were poor against Galway as well, lost at home. So there is possibilities for Monaghan to turn it around and win that game. And if they are to turn it around, it wouldn't be ironic if it was against one of their Ulster rivals in Tyrone. Having said that, though, I think it should be Tyrone to win this game. I think they'll probably have the bit between their teeth to stay in the division, and I'm going to predict the Tyrone win this weekend.
Yeah, like I don't know what it is, but I have a feeling about Monaghan. I have a feeling they're going to turn up for this one. I think McManus coming back into the side, maybe McCarthy coming back in. Like, I know Monaghan have been very poor on the last 4 games. There's no doubt about it. Like, they've been beaten very convincingly. They have obviously been missing players, and I think they have been heavily affected by obviously losing Rory Beggan, who's getting on very well over and potentially getting into the NFL, as it seems. That's been the rumours anyway, that he might be getting in there, which is obviously great to see. From his perspective, maybe some Monaghan fans won't be too happy with the fact that it doesn't look like he's going to be coming back anytime soon. But in saying that, like, I don't know. I don't think Monaghan have became a bad team overnight. Like, it was only, 5-6 weeks ago when they beat Dublin, All-Ireland semi-finalists last year. There is a team there. There's no doubt about it. Vinnie Corey is a good manager, and I think there has to be a kick out of him this weekend. They mightn't win the game, but I think there has to be a performance, most importantly, because if there isn't a performance this week, I wouldn't only be thinking Monaghan could, well, obviously they'd be relegated if they lose, but you'd start to think that maybe Monaghan mightn't even ever come back anytime soon. Do you know that way? Like, especially with young players in many of the counties down in Division 2, like many teams obviously looking to improve and everything else. Cork and Meath, I'm sure, be in the conversation next year. Look at Down, you look at what could be coming up from Division 3 as well. So like it is absolutely massive for Monaghan. And look, they might lose the game, but surely they have to put in a big performance, especially with big players coming back in.
There's no doubt about the effort. Like, Monaghan do show a whole lot of effort, and they have done since Malachy O'Rourke's reign as Monaghan manager, and they will do so against Tyrone this weekend as well. But you'd be looking towards Jack McCarron if he plays. He's been their top scorer so far. Conor McCarthy as well. Will he play in this game? Will Conor McManus come back fully into the team? We're not sure. But Monaghan need to produce a performance. There's no doubt about it. And the thing is, though, we say kind of the same things going to the Ulster Championship game last year against Tyrone. That Monaghan probably have no chance of winning it. They're going steadily enough, but they aren't going to cause Tyrone much problems. But then, voila, they beat Tyrone through a Rhino 2 last-minute goal. And they could produce that kind of performance again, because Monaghan aren't necessarily the county that don't tools. They aren't, because they tried their hardest in nearly every game. So I'm sure they will this weekend as well. And as well as that, Tyrone are very inconsistent, as I mentioned. So I think there's every possibility that Monaghan win the game, but I'm not sure if it's this weekend. Like, I could be eating my words at the same time. I could be. And the one thing you should learn is never back against them. But it's hard to back for them, given the performances they have given and the defensive displays they've given. You would have expected them to kick into gear, especially against Roscommon and Galway, who were 2 teams in around the relegation spots. But they just didn't. They didn't kick into the gear in any part of those games. So, what makes me think that they'll kick into gear this game against Tyrone? So I'd have to back Tyrone to win the game, but then again, Monaghan could prove us all wrong again and laugh in our faces. We're not sure, but yeah, I'm going to back Tyrone to win this game. I think it'll be close enough, but Monaghan ultimately to lose out and go down.
Yeah, A2 says Monaghan simply look like they've ran out of gas. Defied the odds for years with tiny resources, but ultimately it's just not sustainable, unfortunately. And yeah, that probably was the narrative around Monaghan for quite a while, really. That they were going to eventually, this sort of period of success in their own terms was going to come to an end. And then obviously last year was the year many people expected them, myself, yourself, Matthew, like we both expected them to regress, go down to Division 2, especially with changes in management and new young manager come in, but that didn't happen. So maybe this is the year where that happens, and maybe we predicted it a year too soon. Keane says Tyrone to get over the line. Yeah, look, I think if Tyrone do play their best stuff, which probably doesn't happen enough in all honesty, but if they do play their best stuff, they'd be very, very hard to stop, especially with Dara Canavan. Maybe Darren McCurry might come back in, but especially with the Canavans in general. Like I think Dara Canavan has arguably been one of the best footballers in the country so far this year.
Yeah, and the stats show that he's the top scorer for play jointly in Division 1 so far, alongside Conor O'Callaghan with a goal and 13 points, which is absolutely incredible for Dara. But in fairness as well, you mentioned Rory Canavan as well, Dara McCurry, another guy as well, Kieran Daly. He's hit 1-8 for play, has been really, really good from the Trillick club. So, look, I think Tyrone do have the players, and there's no doubt they have the players. Like even Michael McCurran in the defence as well. Niall Morgan's been outstanding in nets. Kilpatrick's been very good at midfield. Brian Kennedy, when he's come in, has excelled. But it's just a consistency thing with Tyrone. Like I mentioned it before, in the first half against Mayo, they were very, very poor. The second half, they turned up. In the Kerry game, they weren't anywhere to be seen up until maybe the first half, to be honest with you, when they showed a bit of fight against Kerry in that mini brawl kind of thing. Against Roscommon, they were decent enough in that game, but that was only when they went out to 14 men. Coincidentally, Derry didn't show enough fight in that game at all. So, like, there is the feeling at the same time as well. Tyrone have excelled in some aspects with Kieran Daly, the Canavans, etc. But if they do lose this game, think of it as an alternate reality. If Tyrone lose this game, they have to go to Croke Park next week against Dublin, needing a win. So there could be a lot of pressure on them to go on and win this game. So there could be that kind of element too about this Tyrone team. And I wouldn't be shocked if Monaghan get over the line. I think Tyrone will win the game, but I wouldn't be shocked if Monaghan get over the line, because Tyrone might be feeling the pressure too, seeing as they do have an informed Dublin side in Croke Park next week.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting. All right, you're back in Tyrone by how many?
I'm going to say about 2 or 3 points.
I'm going to go for Monaghan to pull off what would be a big shock. I don't know, because look, they did beat Tyrone last year, but I just think they're going to turn up this weekend. I just have a feeling we and maybe it's the fact that we've been here so many times and we've seen it down the years, and it's a case of you're expecting it to happen again. But I just think there has to be a kick out of Monaghan. And look, they might win the game. You know, I might be wrong about that, but I think there has to be a performance. There definitely has been, because there hasn't been many good performances, which has been the biggest disappointment, along with obviously the results. Mayo are taking on Derry. Obviously Derry beaten the last time out, of course, by Dublin. Mayo with a good result themselves versus Roscommon. I suppose for Mayo, like it's one of them. You win this, you're, I suppose, very close to potentially getting into a league final. Whereas a Derry, you know, even a draw for Derry would very much confirm them back in the league final. I suppose there was a lot of chat about Derry the last time out against the Dubs in terms of resting key players. Can you see that happening again here away to Mayo?
It's a tough one to call, because as Seamus mentioned on my podcast previously as well, like Mickey Hart will put out the likes of Conor Glass, Shane McGuigan, and Chrissy McKay. He'll do that when nobody expects it. Nobody expected it against Kerry. They expected it against Dublin, and it was the opposite that happened. Like, they play Conor Glass and all them boys from the Glen All-Ireland win against Kerry, and then against Dublin they rest them. So it's a hard one to call. You don't know what is in behind the scenes with Derry. There's no doubt they do have talented players. Like, starting 15, they look really, really good at the moment. Shane McGuigan, Conor Doherty, Ethan Doherty, Conor Glass, Emmett Bradley, Brendan Rodgers. Like, the names off the sheet are very, very good. It's just a matter of, will they put them out on the day? I'm not entirely sure. But Mayo, and Seamus made a very good point about this as well, Mayo are kind of different. Well, it's kind of the same situation. You don't know what to expect, but it's kind of a different light. Mayo can play terribly one day, but then the next day they could just turn it on. Case in point, Tyrone, they were very, very poor in that second half. Left Tyrone back into the game a bit too easily. And then against Roscommon, they turned it on. Against Dublin, they turned it on. And then another team like Louth last year, they turned it off. Against Cork, they turned it off. So it's going to be difficult to see how these sides kind of line out. And that's why it's so difficult to predict. You don't know what to expect from either of these two sides. I'd probably edge it towards Derry, just because, like, I think Mickey Hart will probably play his first team in this game, because there's a league final on the line. He'd want to get to Croke Park, get a national trophy on the board. So I'm going to go for Derry win, but slightly. But then again, even if Derry put out their first team on the field, Mayo could produce an unreal performance and shock the apple cart in many ways. So it's an interesting one to call.
Could there be a possibility though that they got their 4 wins, obviously 8 points. That's definitely enough to avoid relegation. 4 wins, 3 wins usually is enough, but 4 wins absolutely seals it. So is there an argument that they got the 4 wins, and then obviously Dublin, Mayo, Roscommon obviously coming in their final 3 games, and they've probably looked at it and thought we can probably rest players in all 3 of those games. Maybe we'll still have enough to beat Roscommon even if we rest players, because of the fact that Derry, they're going into a very competitive Ulster Championship. I think they've Donegal as a first up in Ulster that I think they have. So like that's, especially with the former Donegal as well, like that's a very intense start. He could then be playing either a Tyrone, Monaghan or Cavan in a semi-final before a final. You've got the group stages on top of that. So like, could there be a case maybe that Derry are actually thinking of the long game here, and Mickey Hart is looking at it and thinking, do you know what, let's just, we went strong at the start of the league. Now let's hold our horses. Let's hold a few lads back, because ultimately they're thinking the bigger picture.
Possibly so, but would you question as well that Derry need a trophy in Croke Park to boost the confidence? It's almost like Clare and hurling, because the Achilles heel for Clare over the last few seasons was Kilkenny and Limerick getting over those and winning a national trophy of importance. Derry would be nearly the same, because you look at the All-Ireland semi-finals over the last 2 seasons. Against Galway, they were put away pretty easily, in all honesty. Against Kerry, they were very unlucky last year, but still didn't get over the line. Wouldn't you think, at the same time, Derry need a trophy just to get that camel off their back a small bit and get that national trophy on the board? Look, I know the Ulster Championship is very important, and fair play to them for winning 2 in a row. But at the end of the day, it's not a national trophy. Kerry and Dublin have won national trophies. Mayo have won a national trophy, the National League, and that might propel them on to bigger and better things this season. So, like, is there an argument as well to throw back at you that Derry need a national trophy to compete with the likes of Kerry and Dublin in the next few seasons?
Yeah, I think they definitely do. They definitely do. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I just think maybe with the way the draw has gone in Ulster, with the fact that they're coming up against a Donegal side, albeit, look, they're playing in a lesser division, and I'm sure Derry will probably still go into that game as favourites. But it's going to be tough. Mickey Hart versus Jim McGuinness and everything else is not going to be an easy game. And then after that as well, regardless of who it is, Tyrone, Monaghan, Cavan, that's going to be a difficult game. And then a final potentially, you could be looking at Armagh down maybe to come through over there, which is going to be very tough as well. And then the group stages on top of that. So I do think there might be an element of Derry looking at the bigger picture, but at the same time, momentum is key, like, isn't it? Momentum is key in sport. And I think for Derry, the last thing they would actually want to do is go into that Donegal game on the back of poor form and poor results. I think they'd want to keep the momentum going. So whether they go as strong, whether they go to their absolute best 15, probably not. I mean, I'm not too sure what the status is of Garrett McKinless, and maybe there might be a few other lads who potentially might be missing as well. But the likes of Conor Glass and maybe some others might potentially come back in.
Yeah, at the same time, though, with the Ulster Championship, I get Donegal are a tough opponent, and they've excelled in Division 2 this year. But I think necessarily, like, would Tyrone be a tough opponent for Derry right now? We're talking about right now. Probably not, because Tyrone are just so inconsistent. Armagh, I would grant that would be a tough opponent in the final as well, but I just believe that Derry need a trophy just to get up on the board. And as well as that, when you look at the league in Division 1 in particular over the last few seasons, since Cork won it in 2012, there's been only 3 Division 1 winners, and those were Kerry, Dublin and Mayo. And one of those teams went Mayo to be fair, and can play at the level of who they're playing and all that. But Kerry and Dublin have been the aristocrats of Gaelic football for the last few seasons now. And I'm sure Derry would want to get up in that pedestal too. So I think there is an onus there that they want to win a national trophy. I do get your point, no doubt about it. Like, they could easily rest players against Mayo this weekend and then play a second team against Roscommon and beat them, because Roscommon's confidence is on the floor. So they could easily beat Roscommon in many ways. So like, it's a difficult one to call. Like, Seamus on my podcast said this could be a draw written all over it, because Mayo could produce a good performance, Derry could play for a second team or whatever. like it's a difficult. As I said, it is a difficult one to call. I'd stick with Derry just about for now, but then again, I wouldn't be shocked if Mayo turned them over.
Yeah, Keane says here, I can see a rejuvenated Mayo side winning this one. Dublin is great, says Mayo. Might rest a few players. Mayo 11 points, Derry 113, and A2 makes a great point here. Mayo is a total coin flip. No clue what team turns up, but I fancy Derry type of team Mayo hate playing. And that's what I was getting at. Like anytime Mayo have come up against teams who sat back, got a lot of men behind the ball, and look, Derry mightn't play exactly like that, but I think at the same time, Mickey Hart will be very alert. You know, Mickey Hart's loud. Let's not forget, sat in very deep against Mayo last year, made life very difficult, and they nearly got something from that game. They very nearly got something from that game. Cork were, done something similar against them and won the match. So, like, especially, like, I think Mickey Hart does have the better of this Mayo side, and I can see Derry beating them, in all honesty. It mightn't be comfortable, but I just think Derry sitting in, they'll hit them on the break, they'll hit them on the counter attack. Derry playing away from home will suit them even more as well, because they won't be at home, so there won't be an emphasis on them to come out and sort of entertain the crowd and everything else. And yeah, I can see them frustrating the living daylights of Mayo, but also picking them apart on the counter attack as well.
At the same time as well, McHale Park is a wider pitch than Celtic Park, and that might play into Mayo's hands too. Like, I don't think it necessarily would suit Derry, the wide pitch. So, like, again, it's a difficult one to call. It really is. It's depending on the teams, isn't it? It's a shame we can't record this podcast when the teams are announced, because I'd have a better idea then. I'm sure everybody else will be on the same boat, so I can't really complain about that. But I'm going to say Derry.
The thing is, though, a lot of the time they don't even go with the teams they announce, and a lot of the time they announce the teams a few hours before. So you'd be waiting on what you maybe do the podcast right before throw in.
Oh, you need to, Jesus, and then rush to the TV to watch us, Jesus Christ. When did Derry actually announce their team against Dublin? I genuinely think it was like an hour before throwing. Like,
I didn't even see it, to be honest with you. I remember checking in the morning, and then I checked again like a couple of hours before, and I was like, maybe they announced it and I missed it. I don't know. Like, I was like, maybe I missed it somewhere. Maybe they just didn't put it up on Twitter. Maybe they put it up somewhere else. But yeah, lovely bit of tomfoolery, as they call it.
Yeah, the old. Yeah, I can't say that word on air now, but yeah, it's just what Derry do, isn't it? They just announce the team later on. It just messes up for the whole thing, doesn't it? And I think Mickey Hart has done this before with Tyrone as well, and Louth in particular as well. Like, you don't know what team he's going to play. You really don't. But that's what makes him the great manager he is, I suppose. Like, the unpredictability of these teams. But cut a long story short, I think Derry will get over the line in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Mayo do it either, but I'm going to say Derry slightly to win it.
Yeah, so we're both backing Derry to come through that. And yeah, anyone tuning in, let us know in the comments, or if you're watching the replay after, let us know in the comments down below. And if you could hit the like button as well, would be much appreciated. Helps the video grow and helps it get seen by more people. Galway versus Dublin is up next. A nice little trip for Dublin fans on Saturday. I won't be going to the game. I was undecided whether I would or I wouldn't, but I think I'll take an L break, because the Derry trip still took it out of me, to be honest with you. But yeah, look, it should be an interesting game. I mean, Dublin do have a very good record against the Galway footballers. I actually can't remember the last time they beat us. In all honesty, it's definitely been quite a long time. But could you see Galway upsetting the Dubs this weekend? Like, Dublin are coming in great form, like after Derry and Kerry. But could you see Galway maybe causing a shock, or is that a reach too far?
Just as a side note, Aaron, just to put into context, I'm going to Navan this weekend. I went to RD in Louth as well, so like. Jesus, there's no excuse.
You're used to the travel, though. Do you know us Dubs?
We're
used to traveling to the airport, and then you get out of the country. But traveling on trains and buses, that takes it out of you.
Yeah, it's almost like a culture shock, isn't it? But moving on to the game, more than or travelling expenses and stuff like that. Yeah, I think Dublin should win the game. I think Galway have impressed in recent games, like against Roscommon. They were decent with that draw. They were very good in the last game, to be fair to them, without Shane Walsh and Damien Comer against Monaghan. Rory Cunningham was really good with 1-3 from play. And they do have good players like Killian O'Curry and Rob Finnerty. And I think they are safe, to be honest with you, even if they don't win this weekend, which I think will happen eventually. I think Dublin should get over the line. They look good, even without Clucks and Fitzsimons, McCarthy. They look like the real deal, really. Yeah, I'm going to go for a Dublin win in this one. And Conor Callan, it'll be interesting to see how much he scores this weekend, because mentioned previously, he's the joint top scorer from playing Division 1 with Derek Cavan. He scored 2 goals and 10 points. I wouldn't back against him scoring more this weekend. So, yeah, I'll go for a Dublin win. But Galway, to put up a bit of a test, it won't be easy for Dublin. It won't be a walk in the park whatsoever. But Galway to put up a test, but I think Dublin will get over the line in the end.
Yeah, Dublin is great. As will you do a watch along for this game? Yeah, I think I will. I haven't done a watch along so far this year. So, yeah, it'd be good to get them back. And it's a good game, good time to do it as well, in fairness. Also says Dublin to beat Galway, Dublin 2-14, Galway 1-11, so quite a big margin of victory there as well. Anything Galway can do, I suppose they do tend to keep the score down quite a lot, which is something that I think we give Galway a lot of positives for. And I mean, could Walsh, Comer, I don't know what the status is with them or injuries around like that, but could there be a potential maybe for them to come back in for Galway to look, more, I suppose, look more to their best in terms of their starting 15? Could that maybe, I suppose, throw a cat amongst the pigeons? I mean, Dublin could do that as well, to be fair. Dublin still have players to come back in, but could Walsh or Comer maybe come back in this weekend, do you reckon?
I've said this previously as well. Shane Walsh is needed in the Galway team. And it was epitomised at the Tyrone game where they were missing 3 after 3, and they actually did well in scoring stats from play. So, look, they need Walsh, they need Comer to excel truly in Connacht and the league, and they just haven't had them enough in the league, unfortunately. It'd be great if they're back from a Galway point of view, but I just don't see them coming back in, especially when after the win against Monaghan, that would probably signal their survival, and I just feel they might rest them before the Connacht Championship. They're on an easy side to the Connacht draw as well, so maybe they'll play them. They've 2 more games before their Connacht bout against London, I think it is, and then potentially Sligo in the semi-finals. So that is a pretty easy run for Galway standards to the Connacht final against either Roscommon or Mayo. So yeah, they could bring them back, but at the same time, if I don't know again what the situation is, but if they have serious enough injuries, it probably make more sense for them to be safe for the Connacht Championship, because that's the cream of the crop. That's where Galway have to excel. You looked at it last year, the league, they did very well. Start of the championship, they did well. But then as the summer went on, they lost to Armagh in a crunch tie, and then they lose to Mayo. Both by point margins, but they were late on the championship, and that's the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately, for Galway. They could have been in an All-Ireland quarter-final last year, but ultimately they messed up, and I don't think Galway will want to do that this year, in all honesty. It's not that they're in a bad place. I just think they might be just playing a bit safer than they have in previous seasons.
Yeah, Sean was saying here, Derry to throw the league to focus on Ulster, Kerry Dublin League final. Yeah, I think a Kerry Dublin League final would be very interesting, but I would expect Derry to get into the league final. They probably only need a win minimum. I do think Derry will be a-okay in getting into that final. So we're both going with a Dublin victory margin. Do you think it could be comfortable, or do you think it could be a close game, or how are you thinking in terms of a prediction?
I'm going to say Dublin by 3 points. I don't think it'll be a hammering, as I mentioned previously. I think Galway will go to them at stages, but I think Dublin should just get over the line.
Yeah, I'm going to say Dublin by a point. I do think Galway will make this tough for Dublin. I think they'll be set up very hard to beat. And especially after how good Dublin's last 2 performances are. I think Dublin are coming in with so much momentum, but there's almost maybe a sort of air of expectancy about Dublin, and you might see Dublin maybe sort of slow things down a little bit in how they're playing, because I think now the focus will start to shift towards what is the Leinster Championship, because look, we're obviously bidding to try and win the Leinster Championship this year, and that's obviously of huge importance. Roscommon versus Kerry, big match. This one as well. Obviously, Roscommon obviously looking to avoid relegation themselves, and a win could very much do in that. Obviously, myself and yourself were on John McMahon's The JMac podcast during the week on Monday, and I'm sure I don't know if it's actually been released yet, but it will be out at some stage, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But our good friend, Mr. Kevin Kennedy, reckons Roscommon are going to beat Kerry. So what do you think? Do you think the Rossies are going to turn over the kingdom this weekend?
I like Kevin, and he has a very good app, the GS Tracker app, in fairness to him, but I have to disagree with him this one. I can't see anything other than a Kerry win this weekend. Sorry, but I just feel with Davy Burke's post-match interviews, with all the stuff going on with results, performances, I think Roscommon are in a bad place at the moment. It's not like disaster just yet, but I just feel there's something off about it. They don't look their usual selves. They don't look up to the right way of playing. I just feel there's something off about them. And Kerry, they'll be thinking in their heads after the Dublin game, we need to prove that we're proper All-Ireland contenders after the hammering they took in Croke Park. The first step was to beat Tyrone. They did that in Galway, and I think they'll do it again to Roscommon. I think again to the fore will be Sean O'Shea, David Clifford, and Paddy Clifford, and that may be a problem for Kerry, that they're relying on them three a bit too much, but them three alone should get over the line against Roscommon. No, I'm not saying regarding Roscommon whatsoever in this game. They could put up a performance in this, but I just can't see anything other than Kerry winning this one, unfortunately, and Roscommon ultimately to go back down to Division 2.
Dublin is great, says Kerry 217, Roscommon 14 points. So yeah, comfortable 9-point victory is what you're predicting there. Yeah, like I mean, especially with like obviously coming closer to championship, Kerry obviously having the Cliffords, back in the team, Sean O'Shea, a few new additions like Killian Burke have looked quite strong and quite good as well. Very, very hard to see anything other than a Kerry victory. We know Roscommon have talent in their county, absolutely no doubt about it. Obviously Ben O'Carroll back in the side, and the Smith on his day, one of the best players that Roscommon have in their team, and certainly probably arguably one of the best players in the country on his day. But yeah, you couldn't see anything other than a Kerry victory. What are you thinking in terms of margin? Like, could it? To be fair, I don't know. I could see Kerry giving them a bit of a baiting, to be honest with you.
I could as well. I think it'll be something like, it'd be over 6 points, I think. I don't think Roscommon are winning this game. I just don't. Simple as. I think Clifford has the capabilities to run asunder on them. You've Paddy Clifford there as well, Sean O'Shea, Killian Burke, Dylan Gainey, even Darragh Moynihan's done well, not scoring wise, but has done well contributing. Joe Connor in midfield has been colossal as well. So no, I can't see anything other than a Kerry win, and I think it'll be comfortable in the end.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'd say Kerry by 5 or 6. Like, it would be great to see both Roscommon and Monaghan win this weekend, because it would mean absolute chaos across the entirety of Division 1. Like, going into the final game, you could have like a point or 2 points separating the bottom team and third place or fourth place. So it would be crazy to kind of see that going into the final day. But yeah, I would fancy Kerry to just be too strong for the Rossies here. We'll move on to Division 2, and I suppose looking at the Division 2 table, there certainly is a lot up for grabs in terms of promotion and obviously relegation as well. You've got both Armagh and Cavan, who very well could be in the mix in terms of promotion this week. So as you'll see there, Donegal are sitting on top with 9 points. Armagh there with 9 points. Cavan 7 points. Meath with 6 points. So they're not out of it just yet, Meath. They might maybe still have a slight chance. Cork obviously in 5th, and Fermanagh, Louth and Kildare obviously down there in terms of the relegation battle. Starting with the Armagh Cavan game, huge game in terms of promotion. Cavan obviously coming in great form. Armagh unbeaten, of course, as well. Like, it's a big game, and I mean, could Cavan do it? I mean, Armagh will certainly be favourites, but especially with how good Cavan have looked at times this year, it wouldn't be inconceivable to see them pull off the shock.
And especially like Armagh have played so well, and it's kind of, it's kind of a shock in its own right that we're actually saying that Cavan have a chance in this game. Because usually if a big team performs well, you would expect them to go full throttle and keep going and going and going. But Cavan look good. They look really, really good. I think in the last game against Meath, they just let a few shot selections go past. Like against Cork in particular, they did 73%. I think it was around 40% against Meath. They were very, very poor in their shot selection. But maybe that was down to the pressure that Meath exerted on them. Donald Kyogo was brilliant, Adam O'Neill that night as well. So they're coming up against a team now in Armagh. They're nearly tick tougher than Meath because they have a good seed of the goal. They're the only team to have a good seed of the goal in the Alliance Football League so far this season. So they're going to be tough defensively. There's no doubt about it. I could see a path to Cavan going on and winning it. I really do. But at the same time, like Armagh are going so well at the moment that I can't see them not winning this game. I think they'll win this game. I think they'll win, but I don't think it'll be a hammering whatsoever. I think it'll be something like 2 to 3 points, maybe even a point between the teams, because Armagh could produce maybe the same performance that they did against Louth at the Athletic Grounds. Maybe just do enough to get over the line, perform poorly in the first half, get it together in the second half, and go full throttle to the end after that. So, yeah, I think Armagh will win the game in the end, but I think it'll be closer than many people expect in this one because Cavan have performed really, really well in Division 2 so far.
Yeah, do you reckon Rian O'Neill starts for Armagh? Do they go as strong as they can for this one? Because it would be a massive setback for Armagh if they weren't to get promoted, especially how well they've performed, some of the results they've obviously put up. And, in most case scenarios, obviously with 9 points on the board, unbeaten after 5 matches, most teams would be promoted already at this stage or be very close towards promotion. But it is one of them scenarios where Cavan have just been very strong themselves. They've only lost 1 game, and that was to Donegal. So will Armagh go full throttle maybe for this one? Because promotion is a massive necessity for them. Like, I don't think it's maybe as big for Cavan as it is for Armagh, in the sense that, Cavan not expected to come up to Division 1, obviously newly promoted from Division 3, and Armagh obviously relegated from Division 1 last year. So you get the feeling that it would be more important for Armagh to get the victory here.
I think Armagh have to put out their best team in this one. If they don't, they're absolute. Like that would be a ridiculous move to make because Armagh need to go back to Division 1. That's where they got their exposure to get to the All-Ireland quarter-final, etc. So I think Armagh need to go back up. Rian O'Neill has to play. Oisin O'Neill has to play. If fit, of course. Aidan Farquhar has to play, Jardy Burns has to, Jason Duffy if he's in form, Conor Turbot, Rory Grugan, Oisin Connolly, who's done well in fairness in games gone by in this league campaign. I think they all have to play. There's no doubt about it. If they play a second team, an experimental team, that would be just absolute madness. I don't think Geezer would do it, simply. I think he'll play a full team as he's supposed to. Like in Division 1 and Division 2, it's kind of different. Division 2 is so important just to get back to Division 1 as soon as possible. In Division 1, you don't necessarily need to get to a league final. It's only if you need a national trophy on the board or you need experience in Croke Park. Other than that, you probably don't need to get to the top 2 necessarily. But for Armagh's sake, they need to get back up. They need to get back up to Division 1. They competed well last season. That is their level. They need to go back up. So I think it'll be ridiculous if they played a second team. So I'd expect Rian O'Neill and Oisin Connolly and Jardy Burns and all the lads to be in this team. If they're not, I think it'd be a ridiculous move for Geezer to make.
Killian says here, need to win against Cavan. Can't make the long journey to Cork needing the win, especially if Cork themselves are in danger of relegation. Yeah, it is a fair point, especially with Cork obviously having something significant to play for going on the final day. What do you reckon then? Can Cavan do it? I mean, like Paddy Lynch has obviously been in great form for Cavan this year, and you feel like if they're going to do anything, maybe he might turn up and produce a big performance. It'd be tough for Cavan, like especially with it being in the Athletic Grounds as well. It's I'd fancy Armagh, to be honest with you, to come through probably by 2 or 3. But what do you think?
But Cavan have beat Armagh before in previous meetings, so it isn't inconceivable that Cavan get over the line this one. But I do think Armagh should get over the line eventually. I think it'll be 1 or 2 points. I think it'll be a close game. And following on from Killian's point there about Armagh and Cork and things like that, from a Cork point of view, we'd love Armagh to win. And Donegal will move on to Donegal Kildare in a bit as well, because if Donegal win and Armagh win, both of them are already promoted, and then they could play a second team coming down to Cork, and then Cork could catch them on the hop in Parky Keefe. That's the hope. That's the hope from Cork point of view there. But I would expect Armagh to get over the line, play their first team, get the job done, and go down to Leeside, not needing anything. That's a nice situation to go into, in fairness, even going to Croke Park and resting a few players going to go to Cork next week. It's a nice situation to be in when you think about it. So I'm going to go for an Armagh win there.
Fair, yeah. I think we're both going for an Armagh victory versus Cavan, and for the Yorkshire County to get promoted back to Division 1. Speaking of Cork, they're going to Meath, and as you said there, you're making the trip to Navan for this one. What are you thinking? What's your expectations? Cork have had a very mixed season, back-to-back wins, so a bit of form. Meath coming in a bit of form as well, it must be said. Whereas I suppose both sides actually probably started quite poorly in the league, so probably been a similar scenario for both of these two. But what are you thinking? Can you go to Navan and pull off the victory? And what would be a victory would most certainly secure any sort of, or put aside any worries of relegation.
Inconceivably, it would actually aren't, because Louth and Fermanagh are actually playing each other. So a win here, it would make us safe. So I think one more win is what we need, and it's definitely what we need with the fixtures and stuff like that. I was actually chatting to Davy Rispin from We Are Meath during the week on his podcast. Check that out if you haven't already. And he made the point about Meath. They have been going well, in fairness. They've only lost one competitive game since it started with Tata Cup. That was against Armagh in the league earlier on this season. So they have been in very good form defensively with Adam O'Neill and Donald Keogh. They've been superb in the backs there. But then again, you look at Meath at the moment, they're realistically not going to go up. They're safe as well. They'll have the Sam Maguire to think about. They have the against Dublin potentially to think about, Park Talton in the Leinster Championship. I'm sure Park Talton will be packed to the rafters for that game. So it's an interesting one how Meath will approach this. Will they go gung-ho in this one? Will they just take the shackles off? But Seamus mentioned on my podcast as well, with the rivalry between Meath and Cork down through the seasons, they'd want to relegate Cork and Kildare. So there might be that at the back of their minds too. So it's a difficult one to call, it really is, because I do think Meath are going on better than us at the moment. I do think they have good players. But then again, they could rest a few and take it off a small bit. But then again, the pressure could be off them and they might play freely football. I don't know what will be the situation on Saturday. I do think we have got 2 wins under our belt now. We need to start attacking the opposition like we did in the second half against Kildare to get gaps open for the opposition. If we do that more leading into the summer, I think we'll get more joy. But the situation is, I don't know what tactics John Cleary and Kevin Walsh will play this weekend. Will they go defensive, which is what I don't want, or will they go attack-wise? If we go attack-wise, I think there's a potential for us to win the game. If you have Conor Corbett up front, if you have Chris Ogue, who's the top scorer from playing Division 2, by the way, with 111, I do think we have the potential to hurt anything, really, on the counter-attack or whatever. So, like, it depends on so many narratives. Like, Army is going to play it safe and drop a few players and maybe focus on the Leinster Championship. Will Cork play an attacking style of football? I'm not sure. Like, it could be a draw as well, but I think Meath might go on and win this game because the shackles are off them, the pressure's off. They might play free-flowing football, and ultimately they want to relegate Cork too. And it's in Park Talton, their home venue, and Meath have a better record against us. So I'm going to go for a Meath win slightly. But I wouldn't be surprised at the same time if Cork go up to Park Talton and put it over the bag, because like it's hard to know what Meath's mentality will be like going into this game, because it's a tough one, really is.
Yeah, like I think at the same time though, from a Meath perspective, like they're on a good run of form. Obviously they've had a few like new players come in. Owen Frains look very good. Dahi McGowan's been very impressive. Still have some big players maybe to come back in, likes of Jordan Morris and whatnot, potentially at some point in the league this year. So I think for me, you want to keep that momentum, because ultimately got, as you said, like going in against Dublin in the Park Tailteann, obviously they have to get over, I think, Laois. It is first, and to be fair to Laois, like they're in great form themselves, so that won't be, or is it Longford, I think, is it, or is it Laois?
I'm sure it was Longford, so I'll have to double check this now.
Maybe it might actually be Longford. Actually, yeah, we'll come back to that. Or if anyone knows, let us know in the comments down below. But I think you would expect me to come through it, regardless of who it is. And yeah, like I just think for me, do you want to keep that momentum? You want to keep the wins on the board. Who was it? Longford.
I'm still checking.
Yeah,
I'm going through the gallery here.
Yeah, but no, look, yeah, I think for me, do you want to keep the momentum anyway, especially going up to playing Dublin? Because look, ultimately, especially for me, if like, especially with it being in the Leinster Championship, on the first game and everything else, like, or second game as it will be, you lose to Dublin, then there's a long wait before the group stages come around. So I think from a Meath perspective, like, you want to keep that momentum. And I do agree with you. Like, I probably would fancy Meath to nick it by 1 or 2. Worry for Cork is a lot of the time, as you said, like when Cork have played defensive, it works against the bigger teams. Maybe not so much, when you're playing teams of a similar standard. And I think if Cork were to sit back in this one and invite Meath onto them, it would just give me the confidence to go and beat you. And I would be confident Meath could get the win, in fairness.
Yeah, I'd be confident Meath will get the win as well. But yeah, it's hard to know what Cork team will turn up. We're the most inconsistent team probably in the country. And it was epitomised in the Kildare game. We passed from side to side. We went into challenges. It's the type of football that I don't want to see Cork play, in all honesty. But then the second half, when Tommy Walsh, as soon as Walsh scored that goal, we went for Kildare's throat. And that's the way we should play football from now on. And attack teams, don't be afraid. Simple as. I don't think we should be afraid of this B team either. They do have good defence, there's no doubt about it, but we shouldn't fear anything. Go for it. We can't play defensive football. That's not in our DNA. We're a Munster county. We're pro Munster county. We're not good at playing defensive football. End of. We're good at playing attacking football, free flowing football. And even the likes of Blake Murphy leaving the panel over the last 2 weeks, and he was an exciting player on under 20 level. You wonder, he's leaving the panel probably because the style of football doesn't suit him. And that's a shame because he's an incredible footballer. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, Cork have to attack the opposition. There's no doubt about it. I do think Meath will win this again. But even if we do lose, it'd be great just to see us just play attacking football. For God's sake, do not pass around the back and anything like that. Do not pass the ball backwards. We need to go for teams' throats more often. And this might be the start. Maybe the Kildare game was the start last weekend. Who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was looking at it there. I think it is Meath and Longford, in Longford Park, in fairness. So yeah, look, Meath will obviously have to come through that, and then obviously play Dublin. But yeah, like I suppose the potential of that game being in Park Tailteann as well, with it being a Leinster quarter final, it will be an absolute titanic battle, you would imagine. Kildare versus Donegal is the next one. Donegal, obviously themselves, we were mentioning about Armagh in terms of promotion and everything else. Donegal, very much a draw will more or less be enough, especially with Armagh and Cavan playing each other as well. They could even get away with losing this one. I suppose, like, you've been a bit more positive about Kildare, having seen them in the flesh, obviously, against Cork and everything else. Like, do you think there's 5 games, 5 defeats? Do you think there's any chance they could get something from this, or is this just a foregone conclusion and Donegal are going to win comfortably?
No, Donegal are going to win comfortably. Kildare are going down, and I know they're down already, but I think it's just a confidence thing. And as I've mentioned in so many podcasts before, I just look at the Leinster side of the draw here, and I finally got the draw up and confirmation it is Longford against Meath. But I looked at Kildare's side of the draw here. They play either Westmeath or Wicklow in the quarter-final. They then play against Louth, Carlow, or Wexford in the semi-final. To me, that looks like a doable route to the Leinster final. And that could avoid Tailteann Cup then. And I mean that Kildare could produce form in the Leinster Championship if they get their players confident enough. And I do think there is loads of quality in this Kildare team, like Daniel Flynn in the forwards, Kevin O'Connell in the midfield, Niall Kelly, Kevin Feely. You look at Owen Doyle as well, experienced player, Mark Donlan, experienced goalkeeper, Mick O'Grady, experienced fullback. I do think there's experience, and I do think there's very good attack-minded players in this Kildare team. If they get Darragh Kieran fit, if they get Jimmy Hyland fit as well, Jack Robinson, Ben McCormack, the names of the sheet are really, really good. And it looked that way in Páirc Uí Chaoimh that they cared. There's no doubt they cared. And I do think there's an element of them playing for Glen Ryan. But I just think when things go wrong for them, they start to doubt themselves a small bit. Like the Tommy Walsh goal. Once they could see that goal, the head started to drop going into the dressing room at half time. And then Cork found it easy in the second half and ran all over them. But I think Kildare, the key for them is to not let a disaster in a game affect them too much. And starting this weekend, they have to start, if Paddy McBrearty hits the back of the net within the first 5 minutes, their heads can't drop. They have to keep going and try and get back into the game as often as they can. That's what Kildare need to do in the next few weeks. There's no doubt about the talent. There's no doubt about the effort. And I've seen it in the flesh in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I do think the players cared. I just think when things go wrong, the confidence starts to drain out of them. And I think that's what Kildare need to stop starting this weekend. I do think they lose this weekend. I think Donegal should win quite comfortably. Donegal are on a different trajectory to Kildare altogether. Jim McGuinness is doing a brilliant job there. Oisin Gallen, Darrow Boyle has done brilliant in the league so far. 2-5 from play for him. Paddy McBrearty has done outstanding as well. So they look in very, very good fettle at the moment, and they're on a completely different trajectory to Kildare. But what I will say with Kildare, watch this place for the Leinster Championship. They can produce it like that in the Leinster Championship, especially with the side of the draw they're on. Westmeath, Louth, they're beatable sides. So I do think Kildare's season isn't all doom and gloom just yet. I do think they're getting relegated this weekend, but I think there's still a lot more to come from Glen Ryan's team as the year goes on.
Is there a possibility, maybe, like we were mentioning earlier, with Derry maybe switching off ever so slightly with the fact that, the Ulster Championship is getting very close, and could the same maybe apply for Donegal a bit? Like, could Jim McGuinness maybe rest a bunch of players here, and maybe that might level things up and give Kildare a chance of getting something to maybe, or do you think that's, I suppose, a bridge too far?
Honestly, it's a bridge too far. I think it's not a situation like Derry. I think it's more of a situation like Armagh. They have to get back up. They have to go back up to Division 1, first time of asking. And they play Meath actually in the next game. And play devil's advocate for a minute. If Meath beat Cork, which we're both predicting, and Donegal lose to Kildare, Meath will be on 8 points. Donegal will be on 9. That's a dangerous situation for Donegal to go into the last game.
Yeah.
So I think Donegal have to go on and win this game and be ruthless. So I do think Donegal will go on and win this game eventually, just to make sure they cemented their place back up in Division 1, where Jim McGuinness and the players actually belong. There's no doubt about it. But there is some positives in Kildare, and I do think they'll put in a good performance. I don't think it'll be a hammering this weekend. I don't think it'll be a slaughtering like the Armagh game. I do think Kildare players will care. I think they will put in effort. But ultimately, I think Donegal will just have too much for them. And ultimately, Kildare will be going down to Division 3.
Yeah, I think Donegal will beat them. I do think it'll be fairly comfortable as well, in fairness. Like, I think, as you said there, when Kildare do concede early goals, their heads do go down. And I do think there's a mix of lack of confidence, but also poor coaching, because they look so easy to play against. And they probably look like one of the easiest teams to play against in the country right now, especially in terms of the top 2 divisions anyway. So, yeah, look, I'd have to back Donegal. I think Donegal are going to be too strong for that one, and I do think they will come through it. Louth versus Fermanagh is the last game in Division 2. Both sides down near the bottom of Division 2 as well. So whoever loses this, very likely to get relegated. And as a matter of fact, I think a Fermanagh win would relegate Louth. So Louth at home in RD, tough place to go. Can they? Can Fermanagh get something here, or what do you think?
I think the situation is actually I think I might be corrected here, but I think if Fermanagh win, then Louth could still stay up, because judging by our predictions, we think Meath will beat Cork. Cork will still be on 4 points. Louth will be Cork, and so Louth will still be safe. But if Louth lose this weekend, I think it looks pretty bleak for them, to be honest with you. And Kildare, they played Louth in the last game. I know Kildare might be gone, but Kildare will want to relegate Louth as well from Leinster rivals there. So I think it might be a sticky situation for Louth if they lose this game. And I said this to Seamus, and I actually put this as the first in the roundup of Division 3 because I think this game is vital. Whoever loses this is in massive trouble of going down. Because Fermanagh as well, added to that, again, devil's advocate, we're going through many superlatives here. But if Cavan beat Armagh, Cavan play Fermanagh next week, and if Fermanagh lose this, they'll be under the cosh really after this. Because Cavan will be going for promotion, Fermanagh will be going for survival, and you can't see Fermanagh beating Cavan in that scenario. So yeah, it's a big game for both sides. I do see Louth winning it because it's in RD, but it's a huge game. It really is, because I think the loser of this is in massive trouble of going down. And I think for Fermanagh in particular, I think when Shane McGullian's shot was saved by Chris Kelly against Cork and Mar Shanley went down the other end and gold, I think that was the moment where Fermanagh were just absolutely devastated, and it could be the moment that actually sent them down. I'm not counting Cork out of it now. They're still not out of the woods, but it was a crucial moment in the relegation dogfight. And yeah, this is a crucial game, but I think Louth will have enough, especially at home in RD. It's a tough place to go. Cavan only beat Louth by a point there. Derry struggled there last season. Even Derry up there with Kerry and Dublin struggled against Louth in RD. Cork lost twice to Louth in RD. So it's a tough place to go, and it doesn't look good for Fermanagh at the moment. So I'm going to go Louth slightly to win this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, all right, because both of these two sides, like when they've lost games, they've only been narrow defeats. Like you mentioned there, Fermanagh's narrow defeat, obviously to Cork. You're looking at Louth, like narrowly beaten by Armagh, narrowly obviously beaten in that game versus Meath as well. A little bit unlucky that day. So, like very easily, both of these two sides could have more points on the board, and maybe some of the performances of both of these two teams, justify them being higher up in the table, but it's maybe just been that lack of quality and key moments that's ultimately let them down. But yeah, I think Louth at home in RD, especially like having been in these games before, like in Division 2, I think that they will have enough to get over the line. And especially when you look at Ger Brennan's men, they haven't been hammered or beaten very comfortably from what I can remember. Like it's been very narrow defeats, and I think they'll find themselves quite fortunate that they're actually not further up in the table. So yeah, I'll go for a Louth victory as well. I'm going to say by 2 points. But look, Fermanagh are fierce battlers, and I do think they'll make a fair game out of this one as well, in fairness. Moving on to Division 3 then, and reminding ourselves of the table. Down and Westmeath are both sitting first and second with 10 points, 100% winning record. Clare are in third, very much still in the mix with 8 points. Sligo are in fourth. Antrim are fifth. Offaly sixth. And Limerick and Wicklow look all but relegated. So, look, we'll start with, I suppose, the big one. Someone told me earlier, the El Clasico of Division 3, Westmeath and Down, because both sides have got a 100% winning record. It's interesting because Down have one of the best attacks in the league, and Westmeath actually have one of the best defenses. So two sides coming up against each other from opposite ends of the spectrum. And yeah, like Down, you'd imagine be slight favourites, but look, Westmeath are coming in with 100% winning record, and actually a Westmeath win would throw the promotion battle right up for grabs with the fact that Down play Clare next weekend.
It would definitely. What I will say, it's great that TG Carr are showing this game, and I don't think when is the last time actually they showed a Division 3 game when it was number one, it wasn't the league final, and number two, when there's hurling on the same weekend. So it's brilliant that TG Carr actually showing this. It shows how much of an important game this is. I do think Down are slight favourites, but it's going to be interesting how both of these sides approach this game in many ways, because both of them might think they're up. They'll be going up against each other in a showpiece final in Croke Park as well. So yeah, it'll be very, very interesting to see who comes out and wins this game. as you mentioned there, Westmeath have the best defence, Down have the best attack. Like Down look really, really good at the moment. They look sharp, and Marty Clark coming back into the team, obviously in goal. It'd be interesting to see if he comes out into this team as well. It's actually shocked that Westmeath are one of the best defences, and they're managed by a former Westmeath great forward. So it's trivia there. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic in many ways that these two sides are coming up against. I do think Down will win this slightly. I do think Down will get over the line, and it'll be interesting actually if both of these sides come up against each other. If they do eventually meet each other in Croke Park, how will that go? But I'm going to go for Down to win this one slightly. And I will say one more thing about this game as well. If Clare, we'll move on to Clare's game against Antrim in a bit, but if Clare beat Antrim, then that Westmeath Clare incident a few weeks ago will seem very, very controversial, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, and to be fair, I don't even think we even got to see any of that, obviously on the Sunday game. But I know obviously Tommy Rooney was sharing it obviously up on Twitter and everything, and we could kind of see what was going on there. But yeah, like that is crazy what happened there, and Clare do seem to be on the bad end of a lot of decisions recently. But yeah, I'd go with Down as well, and I think the fact that Westmeath, like, they're not already promoted, but it is a little bit different for them losing this game because, like, obviously if Sligo were to win, maybe they could sneak back into it. But generally speaking, Westmeath will have that head-to-head victory over Clare, so they're more or less already there. Albeit Down have probably looked better so far this year. It's just the fact that Down haven't played Clare yet. But yeah, I would go for Down. Highest score so far across all 4 divisions, so I would fancy them to come through it. But yeah, the fact the game's on TG Cahir, I think, is absolutely brilliant to see. We're looking at Sligo versus Offaly then. Sligo 6 points on the board. Offaly big win the last time out, obviously against was it Wicklow? I think it was 25-point win, which was a little bit mad to see. Obviously, two sides struggling down near the bottom. Have Offaly turned a corner? Maybe could they go to Sligo and win? But like Sligo do still have like the slimmest of chances in terms of promotion. Like if they were to win this, and Westmeath were to lose, Clare were to lose as well. Like there's a slight chance maybe they might get it. What do you reckon?
They could do, yeah. There's always a chance if that happens. So I do think Sligo will win this game eventually. But there is a scenario actually converting the chat to the bottom of the table, because Wicklow and Limerick, it'd be massive for them if Offaly go on and win this game, because both of them are doomed in if this happens. So yeah, I'm going to go for Sligo to win it slightly. I do think Offaly are turning a corner slowly but surely, but I think got Sligo. And it's interesting, actually, the dynamic of both of these teams, because Offaly won an under-20 championship in 2021, excuse me, for the All-Ireland. Sligo had got to the under-20 All-Ireland final last year. So both sides have good up-and-coming talents coming through the ranks. So, but I think Sligo slightly have nurtured it better than Offaly have. So I think that's probably the difference between the two sides and how they operate. Maybe it's because Offaly are traditionally more of a hurling county. Sligo concentrates solely really on the football. So I would say Sligo, they're doing well in the underage, better than Offaly at the moment, despite being tight. And I do think Sligo will get over the line in the end in this one as well. So yeah, I'm going to go for Sligo win slightly, and maybe to keep their promotion up slightly alive.
Yeah, it would be great to see Sligo in with a mix going into the final game. But I actually do fancy Offaly. I think after what was a huge victory, like 25-point win, I do think Offaly have good players. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Like they were Leinster semi-finalists last year, beat Meath last year. Let's not forget in the Leinster Championship. They do have good players. They've obviously just been on a poor run at the start of the season. I do think you'll start to see more out of Offaly as the year goes on. Wicklow and Limerick, as you said there, whoever loses is down. Whoever wins maybe gives themselves a slight chance, depending on what happens in that Offaly and Sligo game. Very hard one to predict this, in all honesty, because both sides have been beaten in every game kind of convincingly, more or less. Both sides have had a few moments here or there, but it feels like a real sort of graveyard game, this, or something. Yeah, what would you reckon here? Wicklow maybe at home to do it?
maybe like Wicklow's confidence would have been shot on the floor after
Yeah,
that defeat to Offaly. Like that was a huge defeat to take, a huge tanking. And compare that to Limerick, they only lost by 3 points to Westmeath, who are on the higher end of Division 3, and they look really, really promising at the moment. So, like, I think the signs look better for Limerick than they do for Wicklow. But I'm going to go for a Limerick win. I'm going to go for a Limerick win. But what I would say, if your prediction is correct on Offaly Sligo, both of these sides will go
manner, yeah.
down and out.
Mhm.
So, yeah, but I think Limerick will get over the line this one. They show more fight than Wicklow have. So, yeah, I think Limerick will win this game.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think after what was a heavy drubbing for Wicklow, and they haven't really looked right. And they started the league okay in terms of performance wise, but it was only a few narrow defeats. But yeah, the last few games haven't looked too good from a Wicklow perspective. Last but not least, in Division 3, Clare versus Antrim. Antrim, 2 wins in their opening 2. They've kind of fallen off the boil after that. You fancy Clare, surely?
Yeah, Clare to win comfortably in this one. And Antrim, like, depending on other results in the other games, Antrim could be looking over their shoulder too. It's a small possibility, but they could be looking over their shoulder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I suppose if Offaly were to win, and yeah, Limerick or Wicklow were to win as well. So look, I suppose it is a slight possibility in fairness, but yeah, we're both going to go with a clear victory for that one. Division 4 looks a little like this. Laois are already promoted with 10 points on the board. More or less, it's not officially confirmed yet, but they're very much already there. Leitrim, Wexford, Longford, and Carlow all with 6 points. Tipperary with 4 points as well. London and Waterford are both in the bottom 2 positions there. So very much absolutely wide open. Laois versus Leitrim is the first game to discuss, and Keane was saying here earlier, Leitrim to get back to winning ways by beating the Division 4 league leaders, Laois in Portlaoise. A win here is paramount for Leitrim's promotion prospects. Come on, Leitrim, you can do it. Can Leitrim do it? What do you think?
No, they can't. I'm sorry to burst the Leitrim fans' bubble there, but no, they can't. Laois only need a point to go up, and I think they'd want to get the job done this weekend in Portlaoise in front of their own fans. So I'm going to go for a Laois win in this one, and Leitrim to face maybe a tricky spell and trying to go up again. And it's a frustrating thing to be a Leitrim fan at the moment, isn't it? Because they think they're up in the first few games, and then there's the slump. So it's unfortunate for Leitrim, but I think Laois will go on and win this game.
I'm going to go for Leitrim to pull off the shock. Why not? I think Laois are very much already promoted at this stage. I know it's not officially confirmed with score difference and everything else, but even when you look at their score difference, they have a by far better score difference than a lot of other teams. So I think they'll still be okay, even if they lost the last 2 games. So and I think their final game is against Waterford as well. So yeah, I fancy Leitrim to come through it. Ryan O'Rourke obviously back in the side. Mickey Graham is going to spill a bit of motivation into Andy Moore, which is then going to transfer itself across to the players. So yeah, why not? Team Leitrim all the way. I think they're going to do it. Longford and Carlow, this could decide who could be joining Laois, and if it's not Leitrim, Longford are in a good run of form though. Like they did beat Leitrim last week, wasn't it? So yeah, Longford are in good form.
I said Longford to go up at the start of the season. I'm sticking by my prediction. It looked terrible at the start of the league. They lost to Tip and they lost to Laois as well. But a few wins in the bounce, and it's all rosy in the garden again for them. So I'm going to go for a Longford win. Carlow, that was a tough defeat to take it to Wexford last time out. Unexpected as well. And I don't see them recovering, unfortunately. So I'm going to go for a Longford win here.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Longford victory there as well. Tipperary, Wexford. Both these 2 sides are still in it as well. Like even Tipperary still have a slight chance of potentially going up.
Yeah, Wexford have more of a chance though, so I'm going to back Wexford to go on and win this game. Like Ben Brosnan was outstanding in the last game, Owen Nolan. So yeah, but at the same time, Seamus mentioned this as well. Wexford are very unpredictable. Like 1 minute they produce a good performance against Carlow, and then when they come up against a Waterford or Tipperary, they capitulate. So I'm hoping from a Wexford point of view that won't happen. No, so So I'm going to go for Wexford win. They do have potential. Like, they beat Offaly quite handsomely last season in the Todson Cup. They did very well in that competition. Drew against Fermanagh, who really put it up to many Division 2 teams as well. There is potential in this Wexford team, so they need to realise that. So I'm going to go for Wexford to win it.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Tipperary, actually. I think Sean O'Connor has been an absolutely flying form for Tipperary so far this year. And yeah, I think Wexford, unfortunately, will go back to default this week. And I do fancy Tipperary to come through it there. And then last is London against Waterford. Obviously, both sides down near the bottom of Division 2 or Division 4. It might seem like a game that's of no importance. And look, maybe it is in terms of the overall spectrum of the National Football League and everything else. But it would be huge for either one of these two to get a victory. Waterford obviously got a draw the last time out versus Tipperary. So could Waterford get their first win of the year, or could London get their first win of the year? Or maybe neither. Maybe it's a draw.
Possibly a draw. I'm going to go for Waterford. And Waterford were very good in the last game against Tipperary. In any other day, they could have won that game. They scored 113 on the day. I think they scored 1-3 inside the first 10 minutes. They were really, really sharp. And they were just unlucky to come out without a win the last day. I think they'll right those wrongs this week and they'll get the win. But I know both of these sides are at the bottom with a point each, but it's massive hard for morale for one of these sides to win. So I'm going to go for Waterford to boost their morale and get a win this weekend.
Yeah. Look, I think Waterford, as you said before, they were 4 points up against Tipperary in injury time. They were looking very good. And saying that, though, I am going to go for London. I do think London will be too strong at home. I think they will get the job done. In terms of bet of the week, player of the week, what are you thinking?
Shock of the week or bet of the week, what would you call it? I'd go probably Waterford to beat London. Waterford to get the first win in a while. And player of the week, tough one. I'm going to go probably Fergal Boland for Mayo. I think he could have a stormer against Derry this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to go Monaghan to beat Tyrone. Obviously, is a bit of a shock. And obviously, Leitrim beating Laois, I think will be the other one. Player of the week, yeah, Conor McCarthy maybe could be big. Kieran Kilkenny could have a huge game for from a Dublin perspective. Paddy Lynch maybe versus Armagh, but we'll go with Conor McCarthy. Actually, do you know what? No, we'll go with Jack McCarron, because Jack McCarron in the business end of the league, that's always when he tends to show up, in the last kind of couple of games. So we'll go with Jack McCarron, player of the week. And we will go with Monaghan and both Leitrim to get wins there as a big shock. So, yeah, Matthew, cheers very much for coming on the show. Make sure to check out the Gaelic Statsman podcast when everyone gets a chance. And, yeah, anyone who tuned into this, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, it would be very much appreciated. And for anyone who's tuning in on Spotify, do leave the podcast a rating as well. And, yeah, we'll speak to you all soon.